Alrighty, you know me by now. We're never exactly on time. It is No Pucks Given, the Pittsburgh Penguins live chat here on the Pittsburgh Hockey Now platform. I am your often imitated, often hated, often criticized, but often loved. Okay, that's an exaggeration. I'm Dan Kingerski. How are you? Let's get into all of this today. Let me adjust the camera. I can take the headphones off. Everything is sounding good. Who needs sleep? It's for the weak, I tell you. Rolled in last night pretty close to 3 a.m. from Columbus, up and at 'em by 6:30 to do the Dan's Daily. And I've got more columns plus this live chat to go. Keep me posted in the comments. Let me, make sure that the sound holds up. I'm always afraid that the internet gets a little. In fact, I just realized I moved my router behind a wall. 2 seconds. Like I said, 2 seconds. Just to make sure it doesn't get all funky like it did last time. So we're going to post this as a podcast. We're going to post this as a video. Like, subscribe, participate as you would. We'll dive into more of the Penguins training camp. I thought we got a good look at players last night. Sometimes the analysis is not on the players who have the best game. I really didn't think anybody had their best game on Wednesday in Columbus. No, instead, it was who battled through, who got through the mud, how did they handle it, and quite frankly, when they're having a bad game, how bad is it? So we're going to get into that. There's a handful of prospects, and I was looking through the comments last night. I love you all. I can see battle lines being drawn. I like this player. Therefore, that player wasn't as good. Everybody can relax. I'm going to give it to you as straight as I can. We will also talk about a very, I don't even know how to phrase it. It's not a singular topic, but it is the amalgamation of many of them, in so much as this Penguins team is much better than they're being given credit for. I've had some conversations in the locker room, and we'll go into that. I'm going to publish a column on Thursday afternoon with some of the things I've been told and am hearing and seeing, quite frankly, in the locker room. So camp, Penguins are better, and of course, whatever else you want to talk about. I'd love to tell you there are trades coming, but the reality is, no, there has been zero smoke in months regarding these trades. I think we can almost backburner them at this point. Either it's going to happen out of nowhere where we all get broadsided. We wake up one morning and Ricard Raquel is a Toronto Maple Leaf. Or we wake up one day and Erik Karlsson is headed to Detroit or Ottawa or wherever. We're not going to see it coming, I don't think. I think we're just going to get broadsided by it one day. I'll also be happy to answer any questions you have. I know I did a video on Monday, I think it was Monday, about our report on the Penguins sale, and perhaps one of the issues that is taking a little bit of time to button up and get the T's crossed and I's dotted, the land around the arena. I'll tell you what, I got a heck of an education. I also had to be mindful when we did that report that people with an agenda were talking to us. So it wasn't that I just printed everything everybody said. I tried to run it all through the strainer, create a balanced picture. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about that as we do the live chat. So on Wednesday night, it cracked me up, and I talked about this post-game too. I asked Tristan Brose, hey, so I saw you won 7 of your first 8 faceoffs into the third period. Is that a part of your game you're getting comfortable with? And he kind of gave me this longer answer about having to battle through his B game on Wednesday. I loved the answer, quite frankly, because I think a lot of the Penguins had their B game. Nobody was really on their toes, dominating, shift in, shift out, looking better than the Columbus Blue Jackets. I thought on Monday night, at least for 2 periods, that plenty of the Penguins looked better than the Canadiens. It was also a little bit of a different lineup. There weren't, I thought the Penguins were maybe missing some centers Wednesday. When you're not getting good center play deeper in the lineup, that's when it gets tougher to generate sustained pressure. That's when you kind of get 5 guys sort of freelancing independently, so on and so forth. I graded Bros a B. I really haven't graded Hollander. I'm told it's pronounced. I've pronounced it about 12 different ways. I'm actually told there's some sort of Swedish symbol above the A in Sweden, and so it's Hollander, actually. I think we're going to say it however. While I think Bros sticks around because he has been a very good center in training camp, and you've seen his best in Montreal, and you've seen him battle in Columbus, which is very important. You don't have your best for 82 games. We haven't seen Hollander's best. I think that's a fair statement. So of the prospects, I'm kind of putting a down arrow near Hollander. He's going to have to go to the AHL. He's going to have to kind of work his way back up. He will, presumably. At least he'll get a shot to do so. Ben Kindle, to me, on Wednesday night, the Penguins' first overall pick, or the Penguins' first draft pick, I should be more clear, 11th overall. He has had his best moments in training camp and in the preseason in the defensive zone. He had a breakaway later in the third period on Wednesday, but he's going to need to work on his breakaway moves against NHL goalies. Jet Greaves was all over him. Absolutely he gobbled poor Kindle up. Nevertheless, Kindle's best plays were kind of in the defensive zone, or at least defending, because one of his good plays was puck pressure and stealing it in the offensive zone. So that's technically a defensive play until you have it. His offensive zone play, away from the puck, getting separation, getting good shots off it, he's looked like a rookie. He hasn't had it. So I've kind of been trading Kindle sideways through camp and the first couple of games of preseason. I wouldn't be surprised if they send him down in the next couple of days. Harrison Brunick has been a question mark for me. If you notice, Dan Muse really went out of his way not to praise Brunick earlier this week. Now we know why. As Muse told, I kind of joked with the Penguins' new coach yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday, because he kept telling me, well, it's too early for this, it's too early for that, and I good humor. I said, well, let us know when it's not too early. Then we'll start asking again. And he's like, listen, I want to give you guys a little something, but I have to hold back something too, because I don't want mixed messages out there in the public. Like, I'm talking to guys about one thing, and I don't want another thing out in public. Fair point, right? I think Brunick is probably first and foremost on that list, because he has some of those too good for juniors habits. And I'm sure they're getting him to be very crisp, clean, precise, a little bit conservative. Don't try to skate around 3 people when you can make one pass. I'm sure those are the ongoing conversations with Harrison Brunick. He is clearly one of the 6 best defensemen. But is he one of the 6 best defensemen right now? because look at Connor Clifton. I'll tell you what, I like Connor Clifton. I think Clifton deserves a real and extended long look in the Penguins lineup. He was kind of shuffled in and out of the press box in Buffalo, but the reality is getting a cast off from Buffalo increases your odds of finding success. Wait, how do I do this? No, I have to. My podcast producer asked me not to have my little face over there to the side. There's Harrison Brunick. I'm just going to remove that. In fact, I'm going to let him insert videos. I'm going to let him put the pictures up and do that. I do have kind of a podcast producer now and a video producer. You noticed that the video I did Monday had like a big clickbaity headline and a picture on it. And I was like, okay, I guess it is 2025. Dan should catch into it. Connor Clifton has hit everything that moved in the first 2 preseason games. Absolutely just hammering guys. And I kind of talked to him last night because he caught Adam Fantilli just flush behind the net. He's like, well, it wasn't, that big of a hit. And if you look, you actually see Fantilli's feet come off the ice. Like he goes sort of 45 degree. Clifton creates separation. I think he's worthy of a third pairing spot. So what do? Well, how do you create space without making trades? That is the Penguins' problem right now. I suspect Jack St. Ivany will be the guy left holding the bag and be the odd man out. Perhaps you keep Harrison Brunick for 9 games. You give him his 9 NHL games and then reassess. That's maybe where we are headed with that. Let me get to some questions here because primarily, I've done a few videos and done a lot of talking this week. So how about you? Michael Parker says, no high-end talent in this rookie class. We haven't seen Bill Zonin. Will Horkoff is in Michigan. And what I wrote, I stand by. What I wrote in June, I stand by regarding Ben Kindle. He's a project. He's not Green Bananas, 5th round kind of project, but as a first rounder, he still is a project. The Penguins love his hockey IQ. They think they can develop the feet to the point where the feet start dragging the brain instead of the brain dragging the feet. It's going to be a year, maybe 2 years. Look, Braden Yeager still isn't an NHL regular with Winnipeg 2 years on. So Kindle has plenty of time. I'm not prepared to say he's not high-end talent. I am prepared to say he hasn't shown it yet, and I think he has to really improve his skating. And I don't know if he can go to the AHL next. I guess, well, technically next year he could go to the AHL as the 19-year-old. I'm not sure if he could go there as a regular or not. I don't know about his birthday. It would be nice to see. I think he would benefit from a year or 2 years in the AHL. That's what he needs. He doesn't need more junior hockey. Okay, Logan, what are my thoughts on Crosby's quote on the so-called rebuild season? We've got lots of cap space. Do I think he expects the Penguins management to be buyers at the deadline this year? No. I was there when Sid said that. I think you've got it a little bit out of context, or a lot out of context. What he was, saying is like, listen, we do have lots of cap space because all the young guys and guys on second chances, if the Penguins prove themselves to be worthy of it, they have it. But I think that's all he was saying. Look, he wants to win, and nobody holds that against him. I wouldn't read anything more into it. Michael Parker, man, Michael, what did somebody not put milk on your Wheaties? The struggles will continue for this organization. All right. Daniel says, I missed last night. How did Hollander look? I guess I've been over that. Let's get deeper in depth into Philip Hollander. Do I have a picture of him? Yeah, this is close. I'm still trying to anyway, I'm trying to get rid of my little picture beside there. For those of you on the video side, they're like, my face is a little box now beside the picture. Hollander has been okay throughout all of training camp. There have been no high points, however. I think if you're trying to make the team in such a crowded field, you need some high points. You need to flash your full potential. Whether that be some nifty goals, a good snipe, a really good defensive play in transition, and creating a good opportunity, and all of those things that really make you stand out. Hollander hasn't. And that's not a knock. That's just, because he hasn't made mistakes either. I just think he's been vanilla in training camp. And you have to really want him to make the team in order to see anything more than that. And I assumed coming into camp that he'd make the team. I'm not going to say disappointed, but I will say I thought I would see more from him. Along the same lines, Big Joe says, I was excited to see Hollander, but in the end didn't really notice him much on Wednesday. I know it's one game, but you have to get noticed to get a chance. What did I think of his game? I guess I've already answered that. He was a bit wallpaper. Or a lot wallpaper on Wednesday. Let's go to... Man, Michael is just tossing the negs. Everything's negative with Michael. Mario Lemieux, save us. You're not getting Mario Lemieux back. Logan says, Bros seems like he is ready for the NHL. I really hope they at least start him in the NHL to begin the season. I would say that's a high probability. We're at 75, 80% and closing on 90 here real soon. Last one here, and I'm going to maybe talk a little bit about the trades that haven't happened. And can we just call Hollander the Highlander? There can be only one. Oh. Michael here, I will end on Michael, who's just letting rip. I love it. They reached in the draft this year. They think they are the smartest people in the room. Don't like them. Just saying. Michael, I didn't pick up the fact that you didn't like what the Penguins are doing. Didn't pick up on that at all. You hit it very well until that last sentence. I, for one, was fooled. Let's talk a little bit about the lack of trades and the bigger picture here for the Penguins. Because those lack of trades have immensely improved the Penguins' outlook. I mean, think about this. Everyone's projecting the Penguins to be last place in the Metro Division, right? Last place, next to last place, not a playoff contender. I understand why. It comes from the assumption that the Penguins will be sellers, that they are sellers. Guess what? They haven't sold. Ergo, therefore, ipso facto, they still have Rickard Rakell, Brian Rust, Erik Karlsson. And they don't have to have all of the veterans who have not necessarily contributed over the last 12 months. And I'm talking a bit about the guys who maybe underperformed or struggle bust last season. That's your Kevin Hayes, your Nola Chari, and so on and so forth. So I guess I'd put Philip Tomasino in that, where you're not married to giving somebody a 50-game tryout with a primary scoring role, because there are other people who are plenty capable of that, and the chips are going to fall where they may. So the Penguins are better. Their depth is going to be better, much better, actually. Especially when you consider the middle six, when you add Anthony Mantha, Ville Koivunen, eventually Rutger McGroarty, with Brian Rust and Raquel. That's a pretty good top nine. I suspect Tristan Brose will be your third-line center. And the Penguins, actually, Dan Muse could recreate the Wilkes-Barre-Scranton top line from last year, which was McGroarty, Brose, and Koivunen. Oh, were they were pretty good. I mean, that's when Wilkes-Barre was a couple of points out of first place in the league, when that line was clicking and humming along. So that's going to be interesting. And oh, by the way, Danton Heinen is just netting everything that he shoots. Whether he's the 13th forward or they find a space for him in the lineup, I don't know. He kind of always befuddles me as a player because he doesn't show up. He doesn't, like, you don't notice him a lot. Then you realize he played 16 minutes, had 3 shots, and played pretty well. And you're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. He's sort of one of those invisible impact players. But the Penguins could very well improve, because think about this. I want you to kind of consider this. And which picture should I show? Yeah, I guess we're not going to show any pictures. Oh, wait, what if I do this and then I do this? Nope, my picture is still there. What can I do? Oh, wait, there it is. Hey, now I'm gone. We'll show the goalies. And that's Murashov. Okay, there's a shot from last night. Columbus, Hollander playing defense, and Artur Shilov's reaching out for the biscuit. Okay, so think about this. The Penguins blew 8 multi-goal leads in the first 21 games last season. Actually, I think it was 8 in the first 19. I remember a bunch of us trying to figure out exactly what qualified. We were going back and forth on numbers. We all had a sort of a different take on the stat. It didn't really matter. They blew 8 multi-goal leads in the first month and a half of the season. They blew 8 third-period leads, thus losing. That doesn't count the loser points or a win in overtime or a shootout. That's the number of times they lost while leading in the third period, 8. Now, if either of those numbers regresses to the mean, there I am. If either of those numbers regresses to average, or progresses, I should say, to average, guess what? The Penguins would have had 12 more points last year. Do you know what 12 more points would have gotten the Penguins? A playoff spot. Think about that. They are better right now than they were last year. Deeper forwards crew. They've got that young, fizzy, effervescent, energetic, enthusiastic, hungry youth component in their lineup, or they're going to, whether it's just Pickering and Brose, or Pickering, Brose, and Brunick and Hayes and a couple more guys. Whether, whatever it shakes out as, they're going to have at least 2, I would say, if not 4. Actually, 5. When you count Koivunen and McGroarty and Pickering, there's 3. Brose makes 4. So at least 4. The defense can't be any worse than it was last year. Pickering, I think, would help on the left side. Witherspoon seems to be a noticeable upgrade from Matt Grzelcyk. Significant, actually. Witherspoon actually looks like a player. And then, whether it's Ryan Graves, Caleb Jones, Alexiev on the left side, you're better for it. Whether it's Clifton or Brunick on the right side of that third pairing. So the defense can't be any worse. It might be a little better. You start talking about a 15 or more point improvement when you go through all of that. Does that scare anybody? I know a lot of you were just begging for that golden ticket for Gavin McKenna or Keaton Verhoff. I know you're lying in wait for it. I don't know. As it sits right now, Kyle Dubas has proclaimed himself a seller, but also don't forget his comments in July about the sky-high prices. It's like, yeah, we'll trade anybody, but there's a sky-high price, especially on Brian Rust. I do think Toronto needs Raquel badly. Just send Easton Cowan this way. Come on now. Let's go. Send him down. And just toss in Nick Robertson. What the heck? Who says no? So therefore, the Penguins making the playoffs is far from out of the question. I know that's not what you want to hear. All right, let me get back to the questions here. Daniel says, Dumba looked pretty good Monday. Yes, and he's looked great in training camp. He moves so well. Mr. Gable Fisk from Las Vegas. Big picture question here. What are your thoughts as to why NHL GMs are so risk adverse? Very simple, Gable. Let's just say you had a job. When you're making trades on your fantasy team, think about that nervous moment right before you hit accept. Your mind races through 1,000 probabilities. And we all have those. Let's just say you're in a 10 or a 12 team league. 3/4 of the bozos are always trying to rip you off. Connor McDavid might have a down year. How about I give you some young players like Tristan Brose and Owen Pickering for him? You're like, yeah. And you have, I think there's some of that in the professional ranks too. Although I'm in a dynasty league, which, side note, I drive them nuts because they always say, hey, I'm interested in this player. Make me an offer. Well, no, you're interested in this player. I need X, Y, and Z. Now you go figure it out. I'm not doing your work for you, which is, by the way, how real trades are made. GM calls and says, I'm interested in this. Other GM says, I need X, Y, and Z. What do you got? And they start talking that way. And GM will say, wow, no, that's not available. And the other GM says, well, if you want X, guess what? Your Y is, in fact, available. And most of those negotiations end there. So risk adverse. Let's just say you make a big trade. It doesn't work out. You're out of a job. Fans hate you. So why are they risk adverse? Because more things flop and more things don't work out than do work out. Not sure what's going on here. I guess there's some cross banter going on in the comments section. I'm going to stay the heck out of that. Logan says, is there an excitement to the veterans in the locker room, or what is your feeling going into the new season with more young in the conversation? Man, Logan, you are reading my mind, because that's the exact column I'm going to publish not long after this live chat. Parker Witherspoon gave me the best quote. I was kind of talking to him half on, half off the record. I wasn't recording it, but we were having, it wasn't off the record. So I didn't plan to write much about it. But his quote, I don't think he'd mind me sharing it with you, was There's a buzz in here. He's like, there just really is. There's just a buzz in here. We are so much better than people think. I think that's fair. I think the newbies, the youngsters, so greatly outnumber the old guys that the old guys have two choices. One, they sort of seclude themselves away from everybody else, which that's not how they do things. Or two, they join the party. I think most of them have joined the party and are rather enjoying it. Let's go to Jonathan. They really need to find a way to punt Graves. Listen, you don't trade a guy who has 4 years left on his deal at $4.5 million without affixing some serious assets. At this point, the Penguins can afford to make Ryan Graves their version of Wade Redden. They can afford to just stash him in the minors until he gets it together or his contract runs out. Or, let's call it 2 years from now when the salary cap was $120. Now $4.5 million only costs you a second round pick to give, to trade away. That's legitimately the timeline on this. Is, the Penguins are 2 years away from being able to move Ryan Graves for something affordable like a second round pick. And I'm basing that on if Matt Dumba at 3.5, Kevin Hayes at 3.5 and change with 2 years remaining on his deal, those guys came with a second round pick attached. Hayes even pulled a second and third rounder when St. Louis needed their second rounder back to go sign Philip Broberg. Broberg cost them the second. Holloway cost them their third. But you get where I'm going with that. It's 2 years. And I don't think they mind sending one or two veterans down to Wilkes-Barre. Where it gets very interesting is if they have 4 or 5 down there. And you've got this big veteran rotation where, 3 or 4 of them are sitting in the press box every night. Although Wilkes-Barre doesn't really have a press box. If you've ever been to the Mohegan Arena, kind of look up in the corner, and they put like a little table there for the couple media people who come. But we're basically sitting in front of the luxury boxes in seats. Big Joe says, Aiden McDonough looked okay last night. Took the one meh penalty. Yeah, I wish he hadn't done that. But he is a big physical body and had some chances. He led all the forwards in shots until the end of the game when some guys caught up to him. He really did. Big Joe, take a look at Aiden McDonough's hockey DB. He had 16 points in 16 games before a season-ending injury last season with the Charlotte Checkers. He does also have 6 games NHL experience. As a rookie, he played with the Vancouver Canucks. So I've been noticing him for a full week or more. Like, who is this McDonough guy? He's an AHL contract. I don't have time to pay attention to all the AHL contract guys, but McDonough just is always there. He's always in the middle of everything, around the puck on his stick. He's got a little something. Michael Thompson. Hey, Dan, how are you doing today? Well, I'm peachy keen. What's my opinion on Jari? Has he looked like he has improved or just the same old Jari? I have no idea. I don't think you can judge goaltenders in practice, especially just these drills where guys are getting point blank shot after shot after shot. I have no idea how to judge Jari on this training camp so far. Sorry. Michael also asked, do I see Boko on the opening night lineup? No. There are too many good players fighting for space. And I'm talking about Robbie Fabry, Tristan Brose, as I mentioned, Justin Brazeau. Who am I forgetting? Raphael Harvey Pinard. I think Harvey Pinard has been tremendous in camp and his only preseason game. I think he's been tremendous. So from that standpoint, Boko serves one role. And you just don't have the space for a guy who serves one role on your opening night lineup. It's unfortunate. I love talking to Boko. He is just one of the most outgoing, gregarious, humble guys that, you could ever want to meet. In fact, we were lobbying. We were deciding that all media contingents should get to name an extra player on each roster, exempt from the salary cap, exempt from the 23-man roster. We would name Boko. We would just make Boko our go-to guy every day. We go talk to him, and then everybody else. The NHL probably doesn't like our idea too much. All right, if that third line is indeed Bros, McGroarty, and Ville Koivunen, I always forget about Tommy Novak. Yeah, with Novak and Mantha filling out the second line, that leaves Lizotte, Brazeau, Connor Dewar, Kevin Hayes, Nola Chari, Danton Heinen, Philip Tomasino, Harvey Pinard to fill out the last three spots. Yep. You got it. And that's kind of why I've been talking about this overcrowded forward situation for some time. I think Lizotte is in, so you're down to 2. I think Brazeau is in, so you're down to 1. Dun, dun, dun. I think Harvey Pinard, Lizotte, and Brazeau would be a very interesting fourth line. And maybe Connor Dewar is your extra guy. Maybe Heinen is because he can play fourth line. He can play top line. I don't think, look, Kevin Hayes is going to be out until mid-October. So that is not a pressing decision, but I do think Hayes, they probably send him down to Wilkes-Barre on a conditioning assignment for as long as they possibly can. And then, maybe leave him there. Nola Chari is progressing. He should be ready next week, maybe 2 weeks with the core muscle. But boy, there's some miles on those tires. Tomasino played last night. He didn't make an impact. He's going to have to start making an impact sooner or later. Tomasino is going to have to show that top-end talent. He has it. He really, you saw in the first 5 games last season when he first came over from Nashville, that post-trade bump, he was great. He was sniping everything. What was it, 3 straight game-winning goals, 2 straight, whatever it was. Unfortunately, when he's not exactly on point, he doesn't do enough to help you win. When he's not scoring, he's not helping you. And he does get too enamored staying on the perimeter. So I think Tomasino heads down to Wilkes-Barre, quite frankly. Okay. Michael says, Dumba looks a little slow. I like how aggressive he is with his hits. He looks slow to you? Boy, he looks very quick to me. He looks really quick. There again, with Clifton hitting everything that moves, you do have Dumba and St. Ivany and Brunick. I think we know at this point St. Ivany is definitely the odd man out, like I said earlier. And maybe you rotate. Maybe Dumba is your 7th guy because he can skate so well. Though Caleb Jones should be in the mix. The guy that I haven't seen enough from yet is Alex Alexiev. He just has looked too slow, like lumbering to me in most practices. He had some hits on Wednesday. Don't get me wrong. But he really needs to play a lot more hockey, and he's not going to get that with the Penguins. Let's go to Adam Blank. Adam says, any of the vets heading for trades? Come on, Adam, where have you been? I'm guessing you're just joining us. Well, yes, I think in an ideal world, Kyle Dubas would like not to waive some of these vets, but to trade them. If you get a 5th or 6th round pick, I mean, it's better than eating salary, right? You can't. This is not the NFL. You can't outright terminate a player's contract without a good reason. You can't just say, we don't want him anymore and terminate his contract. Nah, doesn't work that way. You got to pay him. Now, some players like Jesse Puljujarvi last year asked out of his contract because he just thought he could do better elsewhere. I suppose that's possible, although you have to be kind of in a special situation or really believe you're getting the short end of the stick, and it won't change. Now, Puljujarvi was going to be a free agent this summer regardless. I think, right? Or was he on a 2-year deal? I forget. I think it was only a 1-year deal. Like, if you're thinking Kevin Hayes has he's got $3.5 million. He's not going to walk away from that. Nola Chari is over a couple of $1 million. These guys aren't going to walk away from it. So I think you can forget any guys asking out, and the Penguins can't. The Penguins just can't punt them. Remember 20 years ago when Jim Rutherford was the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes and he sent Arturs Irbe to Johnstown? They didn't want to disrupt the development of, I'm trying to think of who the goalie was. It wasn't Alex Nedeljkovic. That came much later. Would have been 2004 and 5. I don't know. I forget who the Carolina Hurricanes future goalie was, but they didn't want Archie Irbe to take ice time, take starts away from him, so they sent him to Johnstown, and that was a scandal. We didn't have social media back then. Everybody was like, "Oh my gosh!" All the message boards and everything lit up. People, because Archie Irbe was a bit of a folk hero. 5'9" goalie, stood on his head in the playoffs for the San Jose Sharks. And, he had the big fan base. There again, he went down to Johnstown. He ate his humble pie. He took care. I hope I'm not talking too far out of school. Obviously, the ECHL guys are not going to 4-star steakhouses after the game every night. And there was a couple players' bars, and it was not uncommon for Irbe to walk in after the game, and the guys were starting their post-game libations. He would just walk up, give the bartender his credit card to let the boys have a good time tonight, and leave, because at that point he was making like $5 million to be in Johnstown, which is not enough. I kid. Okay, let me get to more questions. St. Ivany needs another shot. I really like him. Somebody will give it to him. I do believe if they put him on waivers, you have seen over the last couple or a few years that defensemen have a better than 50-50 chance of getting claimed. Kolyachonok got claimed, for gosh sakes. So yeah, I foresee St. Ivany getting a shot, just not with the Penguins. And Michael Double Dips here. What is your take on Anthony Mantha? Do you think his style of play will complement Gino's? I'm going to give you 2 answers here, Mr. Thompson. First, I think Dan Muse likes it. I think Dan Muse is going to use it. Now I'm going to give you my answer. I hate it. Because Mantha plays a very slow, stick handling, skill game. Malkin was best last year when he was bookended by speed. They dragged him into the fight. They dragged him up the ice last season. If you have Mantha, Malkin's great temptation is going to go east-west, dipsy-do, stick handle. They are going to be absolute chum in the water to forecheckers and defenders. I don't see it working out very well at all because Mantha is too slow. I don't like the combination. Don't like it one bit. In fact, I don't give a spit, said Dr. Seuss. What did you think I was going to say? All right. I think we're going to probably wrap up the chat. I'm going to put out the last call for questions because I do have some uber important things to do. I think I've mentioned I'm actually buying a house, and what a pain in the neck. I didn't really, if I didn't own I have to actually do like a mountain of paperwork in the next couple of hours in order to meet my closing date. They want to see some profit and loss statements that I've never done. So Dan has to figure out how to do them and do 2 years worth to prove that we were ourselves. It's like, here's our taxes. Like, no, we don't want that. We want this template and this form. And I'm like, oh. Anywho, so Dan's going to wrap this up very soon. Adam says, if you haven't addressed it yet, who is my biggest dark horse to make opening day or have a season impact besides Bros? I'm glad you put Bros in there, but I don't think he was a dark horse. He's been a pleasant surprise. He's further along than I expected. My dark horse is Raphael Harvey Pinard. I think I think he has earned it. I think that scrappy, speedy, get after it mentality will serve the Penguins well. I don't know that he's one of the 12 best forwards. I think he's one of the 12 right forwards. And when you inject a little bit of that fizz in your lineup, it spreads. It gets contagious. That was supposed to be Noel Achari's job a couple of years ago. But it really hasn't worked here in Pittsburgh for, part on him, part Father Time, and part Penguins for making him a center his first year. I thought Sullivan erred greatly by keeping him in the middle. That's just not his best game. He plays conservative and quiet when he's a center. His first year, he should have just been shot out of a cannon as a, kind of a crazy winger. Michael says, walk away, Dan. Just, Jonathan, walk away. Well, I'm not going to walk away from a house. I'm getting a hell of a deal, by the way. You don't buy houses in my neighborhood for what I'm paying for this house. I'm just, okay. Kyle, along the same lines as Adam, who has surprised you the most negatively or positively so far? Good luck with the house and the P&L. So, I have to do some P&Ls. Yeah, that's good. God almighty. Kyle, I should make you do them for me or ask you to do them for me. I actually tried to upload them to Grok. Grok promised to do them for me, then Grok broke. I suppose negatively surprised. I have been I wanted to see more from Hollander. Who else has kind of surprised me? I expected to see more. Oh, you know what? Artur Shilovs. I was a little dubious. Don't forget, the Penguins essentially traded Alex Nedeljkovic and a 4th round pick for Shilovs and a 3rd round pick or a 2nd. What did Ned bring back, a 2nd or a 3rd? I think a 3rd rounder. So it wasn't like they benefited greatly from swapping goalies. I was a little dubious on Shilovs because he did wash out of the NHL last season, but he had that great run in the AHL, and I think the Penguins were banking on him being, that championship guy. I haven't necessarily seen it. I just really haven't. I was expecting a bit more last night. Okay, last one here, kids. Michael Thompson, how would I grade Ben Kindle's training camp and preseason? B minus. He hasn't been bad. I think we talked about him at the beginning of the show, long time ago, wherein he isn't creating a lot of separation and space. So we're not seeing what he really brings to the table in the offensive zone. What we are seeing is him being able to read the plays very well. He's made his best plays have come in the defensive zone or defending the puck. Like last night when he got after what would have been a Columbus transition, and he very quickly nullified that, made a great play to strip the puck and keep possession with the Penguins. Those have been his best plays. Jumping forward at the defensive blue line to interrupt a play or take possession, creating, an interception, essentially. All those little things bode well for his future. We need to see that offensive zone flare, though. 96 points that he had in the WHL last year. Is that right? So he's got to get a little bigger, a little stronger, a little faster. All things are possible. And then we can judge. It's so difficult for me to judge him right now because he is just green bananas. He is green bananas all day long. I think the Penguins knew this, too. They were not enamored with the rest of the talent available at number 11. So what they did was they took the guy with the biggest brain. They took a big swing, took a big chance right there at the high school dance. They grabbed Kindle, hoping that his body and the development that they're going to put him through can maximize, his brain. Otherwise, he's just Pinky. That's probably too old for most of you. If you can, on the internet. And I'm done. It was Facebook going around this week, and I have to keep using Facebook to post Pittsburgh Hockey Now articles. It was a meme going around. The people, the real-life people who Pinky and the Brain were based on. The Warner Brothers animator that they based Pinky on, priceless. I mean, I think his great grandkids will have that picture, the two of them side by side. Okay, kids, that is it for me. If you are an accountant and want to do my P&Ls for me, please call toll free. Call now. Operators are standing by. All right, we will, I guess Friday morning, we've got Marc-Andre Fleury. The weekend begins. Shelley and I will be at the UPMC Lemieux Complex covering that. And then, of course, Saturday is Marc-Andre Fleury night. Both Shelley and I will be there covering that as well. So we'll be in touch. We'll be talking. In the meantime, have fun.